Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Shadow and Sun Show, and welcome back to
Hey, buddy.
another episode of Prepping for Gamers. With me, as always, is my good friend Grim. How you doing today, man?
Hanging in there. How's everybody out there in YouTube land? Hope everybody's doing
I
good.
hope everybody's doing great. I was hanging out with Fritz right before this. Fritz from GM's Alcove. If you have not checked out his channel, please do. He's got one of the coolest channels out there, and he was really cool about me, stepping all over his show right now. And I'm guessing that's where everybody is right now. If not, we're gonna keep this to an hour, so you guys can come back and watch it and save it and share it and immortalize it however you want so that you can always have these tips. Today we're going to be talking about the bare minimums, and that goes for whether you're staying at home and sheltering in place, or whether you're going hitting the road using the bug out bag or whatever, getting in your car. Let's start with the small stuff. That would be the bug out bag in your car. Uh, One of the things I would highly recommend is making sure you're not only is your vehicle fueled up and ready to go, but that you've got a couple of good heavy duty gas cans in the back, at least 10 gallons, because as we've seen, if you're going to be hitting the open road, there's a good chance you will not be able to stop at a gas station safely. And like Grim said before, what was it? Taking the back roads.
Taking the back roads if you can. Yeah, any way you can get to wherever you always should have a planned destination in different directions, but usually a family member's house or a friend's house or somewhere where you're going to be able to have the comforts of home as much as possible. Maybe they have maybe they're fine completely there, maybe they're not, but you also have security in numbers.
Yeah,
So,
that is
but
a big one.
main roads are usually not a good idea at all. If you ever watched,
Uh,
I'm sure a lot of the folks out here, you've watched The Walking Dead. Remember the one road going out of the city of Atlanta? What that looked like? That's what you're facing in a really bad disaster.
yep,
You are not
and
going
uh,
anywhere.
and definitely the safety in numbers is a big one. You know, you're not going to be able to do it alone, and you're going to need people you can trust. And if you are sticking at home, then try to make sure that you've had that sort of neighborhood meeting with the people in your neighborhood that you trust, and have a plan for those. Help those people that are leaving get the heck out of Dodge if that's what they want. You need to be able to sort of do an inventory of your neighborhood, seeing who's staying, who's going, and the people that are staying, that they
That's a
know
great
their
idea.
their their job. You're going to have to have your own neighborhood watch, because you never know who's going to come along and either try to kick you out or take what you got. Now back to the old bug
Right.
out bag. Hey, Crafting Gamer, welcome to the show. You're going to need water, lots and lots of water. And I showed you guys before the filter system that you can literally throw in your jacket pocket if you need. Dispenser show. Hey, what's happening? Welcome to the show. You're new,
Hey,
aren't you, Dispenser? Or you've got a new name? Because I definitely do not remember that name. But welcome to the show. I hope you've
welcome.
uh, put prepping and survival for your family and loved ones up here in the old noodle, and kept it as a priority, not to worry people or anything, but you guys should all have a earthquake or emergency disaster kit somewhere in the house, your first aid equipment. And right now we're talking about the bug out bag, the bare minimums. You're going to need a couple of days of water for each person in the vehicle or that's with you that you're responsible for. And that's going to get kind of heavy. You're talking a gallon a day minimum, just to survive and be able to hoof it if you have to leave the vehicle. Well, I would recommend making sure that you can carry all the water that you brought with you. or at least, make a beeline for the nearest source of water, and, plan to fill up your water containers as you go along. If your route doesn't include water, pick another route. If you cannot travel with water, even if it's not the cleanest of water, a good filter system, a good, mini stove, or a way to start a fire. Another tip, you can actually take one of these bottles, preferably a 2-liter bottle, and you can literally hang it over a fire if you do it just right, and the plastic will not melt. The water inside actually prevents the plastic from melting, and if it melts, you've obviously put it too close to the fire. But there's lots of videos out there where you just suspend your water and you can get it to boil, pour it into the, take it away from the fire and put it next to the other container, and
Chewy
sterilize it
agrees.
after you filter. What?
Chewy agrees.
Yes, he does. And
He's
Owen
agreeing with
Al
you.
would like to join us. I'm going to pop him in here if I can get my fingers to work right. What's happening, Owen? How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well.
All right.
I'm recovering from trying to dig a hole, of which I have about 19 more to dig. So,
Well, hopefully you're not putting people in the holes, and hopefully they're not too deep.
well, only myself, and I just have to. I'll probably get an excavator, finish them off. I want to plant a bunch of trees, but I want to do them by the Ellen G. White method because everyone says it's great. It's supposed to help them grow a lot faster, and I like to actually see fruit on these trees before I die. So,
What kind of trees?
pomegranates, jujubes. I got some Belladon cherries, some Blenheim, apricots. I have a couple of others there's some that are going to be small and ones that'll take a while. I've got a couple of olive trees. Those will probably take a while before I put them in the ground. And
I
I'd like
gotta
to
ask, what is a jujube? Because when I think jujubes, I think the candy that sticks to your teeth and makes your dentist happy.
They also call them the Chinese date, but they're really hardy. So they're a couple of my small trees right now. They aren't real big right now, but one of the guys at work said he used to grow them up in Uvalde, Texas. He says those things are as tough as can be. And you probably find them a lot in California, but they do real well in arid conditions. It's supposed to be real tough in different types of soils. So,
Hey, Grandma, how you doing?
Hey,
Okay,
RPG.
Spencer, sorry, I got to say hi to the people in the chat real quick before they get, buried, avalanched with the other chats. Dispenser, okay, I awesome. So you changed the channel name. He's one of the guys that I game with in Rick from 28 Millimeters Traveler Game, and he's just started his own channel. So later on, guys, write that down and go check out his channel because he just started a new channel. And you know how we are here, helping out all the newbies and new content creators, because you'd be amazed how much we can learn from each other. RPG Grandma, she's got a channel out there. Go check her out. Crafting, not bugging out from here. All I need is a good hand pump for water, and then I'm set where I am. That is awesome.
Good for you.
I wish I could say the same. We're not far from water, but we're not close. Within. I mean, we could get there in I don't know, a couple of hours on foot. But after water, obviously, and gasoline. If you're going to be mobile, you're going to need shelter and food. Shelter, I wouldn't actually personally be carrying shelter because I live in the desert, and I can either make shelter or I'd be using the car, or I suppose I could get a small tent for the other people in the family. I know how to make dozens of different types of shelter for all kinds of weather and environments, but definitely want to think about the Mylar emergency blankets. But I also saw they make now they make Mylar ponchos, and I'm like, that's almost better than the Mylar blanket. The blankets are good because you can do a lot of different things with them, but the poncho, it's micro thin and you can just put it on, and wear it without having to try to, belt it on or do something weird, for cold weather. Otherwise, they're really not all that useful, other than maybe to catch rainwater. And of course, the blankets, you can pick them up for like $2-3, and I would literally, have like two per person if you can swing it. That way, if you need to make a nice,
Um, I
shelter
know
out of them.
I know you're in that area, but I don't know. Are wildfires an issue where you are?
They on the other side of the mountains that we live near, they have been an issue. We're about 100 miles away from Los Angeles, and just about every July we can not see the fire, but we can see the smoke to the point where it changes the color of the sun, and it's been pretty bad. But I live less than a block away from a fire station, so if worse comes to worse, hopefully they wouldn't be, they've actually been mobilized elsewhere out of our neighborhood to help with the fire. But I've got a couple of the the big fire extinguishers that you put in water
Great
and then
idea
you
to
pump
have.
them.
Great idea
And
to have.
I would, if a fire was to happen, first thing I'd be doing is getting the chainsaw and knocking down the trees that could catch my house on fire. I'll suffer the consequences later. I know how to use one. I know how to get them to fall. Hopefully not on the main road that they're lining, but better that than my house catching on fire. And if worse comes to worse,
Absolutely.
Well,
I'd be up on the roof. We've already got a system to raise and lower the fire extinguisher, so I could use one. Someone could fill it, tie it to the rope, bring it, pull it up, and then use it, and keep doing that. Because I'll be damned if I'm getting burnt out of my house and home, because that's where my books are.
well,
Speaking of your area where you live, don't forget that in a situation where things might be going bad, your internet might be overwhelmed or it might be completely down. Have maps. Have maps of your area. Have maps where you're going. And on those maps, if you can, mark specific areas. Mark like friends' houses, or where acquaintances, or places where there the water should be marked. But if you have other places where you can get water, like say a site has free water there, like a park. Sometimes we have a park near us that you can get free water at. Mark those areas.
Yep.
And mark where you're going to bug out. Because if you don't have that map and you're counting on your map quest to show you to get there, and it doesn't, and you need alternate routes, you need to have that map.
I'm going to say,
that.
and so much really depends on the type of emergency you get.
Yes.
That the one thing that, and people forget about just how powerful, but I was in Florida when they had, not Harvey, Andrew come through. Andrew.
Okay.
And that basically leveled. I mean, now supposedly the houses are stronger, but I mean, it took the houses off the foundations up to the point that, really you may not even have street signs. You may not have any kind of landmark either. That's the other aspect. So you may want to also put down your GPS coordinates should still work unless something takes that out. So you probably want to put that in as well for areas, just to make sure.
That's
just
because,
when those things go down, it's going. Like I said with Andrew, it flattened 100-foot tall trees and everything. You're like, okay, how are you going to find your way home if you have to go back? I mean, that sounds terrible, but when it takes everything off except the slab, you're, that's the other part too, is no one to evacuate. Just because you say, I'm not going to leave, you know what? Things can be replaced, and even the irreplaceable things usually aren't worth as much as the people. So
that's true.
And plenty of people been through hurricanes, and they stayed. They survived the hurricane, but then they said the next few weeks just sucks because everything, you have no power, no food, and it depends on where you are. But a lot of when you live in the Southeast, 98 degrees, 98% humidity is not unusual.
Yeah, and Yeah, I
Yeah.
can't even imagine that. I was in Virginia, August, working on a rifle range, and it was just absolutely brutal. Another thing, which reminds me, another one of those bare minimums is your medications. If you are on any kind of medication, do whatever it takes to get backups. At least, well, bare minimum would be a month. An
Can you get
extra refill. If you can do more, that's great. Especially, there's some places out there that you can go to get the equivalent of emergency supply refills for your prescription that are not dependent on your doctor in your local area through the mail, that you can get things like antibiotics and other
can you
things. I'm not going to go any further than that because I really don't know. Grandma says a tornado here would be bad. No basements. My house is on wood foundation. It would be gone. Most of CA is cement and slab now. Yeah, where I live, I we're in no danger of any kind of floods. We're in no danger of tornadoes or anything like that. There you go.
If you can get some of this
Good.
stuff, this is fantastic. My son had a sensitive part. But it's antimicrobial. I think it's antifungal. It got rid of it real fast for whatever skin, issues you have. I have friends of mine that will help pick this up from Mexico, and it was like $5. It was $5 for this.
You
And
can
if you
order
have
some
any
stuff
sort of
through Canada and
inhalers,
Mexico.
if you're on any kind of inhaler whatsoever, sorry, Greg,
Oh yeah.
make sure you have extras of those, because especially if it's like asthma or something like that, where it's one of those things that you take as needed, you're gonna need it, you're gonna panic, and you're gonna be tempted to use it more than you probably would normally, definitely more than you would
Good
normally.
point. Absolutely.
And
Yep.
even over the counter, like the Primatene stuff. The cool thing about that is it's got epinephrine in it, which is kind of like adrenaline or other things that will, help you deal with, the issues of, being it being an emergency. They will put you a little on edge. You can even get the pills. Primatene comes in pills, which is something that will, help if you've got asthma and other issues like that. I know because a lot of the doctors won't let you have a backup inhaler.
Really?
I don't know what the yeah.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. I have that issue.
They know exactly how many inhalations you've got, and they're like, no, you've still got 37 more, and I'm like, well, yeah, if I use them exactly as directed, that's what I would have, but I'm running out. And they never take into account, if you carry an inhaler with you, carry it in the box for two reasons. One, if you ever get stopped and the cop is being a jerk, he can literally take you in because you don't have the proof of your prescription. The other reason is those inhalers, if it's in your pocket, it will go off in your pocket if you move the wrong way, and you can start draining it slowly just by carrying it around. I found that out the hard way. My a lot of the inhalers have a meter on them and will tell you, and I knew what was in it, and I'm like, hey, there's two less than there was last time I looked at it. What's going on? And then I realized, it was doing it in my pocket because I was just moving around, being active, hiking or such a thing.
I'm going to bring something else up with the medications. If you're not on something super specialized, and that's the other thing, just because doctors, do the prescription, they'll usually go for the more expensive. But if you can get the generic, just pay for an extra 2 months and just have that, and like you said, stocked up in the background just in case. And COVID, people forgot about this. It was hard to get certain medicines during that time. And,
Yep.
Just the fact that you could have 2 or 3 months extra does make a big difference. And it's not that everything has to be great, but some of the stuff that they give, and because I've had a chance with gout and allopurinol, sometimes just fighting with the doctor to get those things. Like, look, dude, just give it to me. It's not like I'm going to abuse it. What am I going to do? Suddenly eat a bunch more meat? I mean, come on.
Right.
That's the other
Right.
part too. Is getting.
And if you do have extras, rotate the stock.
Right.
Which
Well,
is going to segue into the next one. But yeah, use the oldest first. That way, the freshest is still sitting on the shelf, so that it doesn't expire. I know all expiration dates, no matter who gives them to you, are in the favor of the company, not in favor of you. You can use a lot of medications long after, within reason. 10 years, no, but up to a year, I would still count on it as being effective, especially if you store it properly. Which, again, store all your medications in Ziplocs, double Ziploc them, put them in something that's not going to deteriorate, or if it's some medications are actually affected by sunlight, so keep them in dark containers. And
You you've seen those shows, Shadow, that show like a lot of zombie shows. I watch a lot of those, and just for fun. But they remind you that a lot of times you'll see in these zombie shows or these post-apocalypse shows people going into a pharmacy because they forgot something, and that's a very dangerous place, because the main people that are going to go in there real quick and clean it out are going to be, scummy people that are going to charge arm and a leg for medications. And they'll get everything. They won't just get the drugs that'll get you high. They'll get everything because they know that they can charge an arm and a leg for this particular item because people can't get it. So be very careful of that. Don't risk that. Have your stuff ready. Have extras, like they say, ready, because you don't want to be in that situation where you need the stuff. Your child, your wife, somebody you love needs these items and you don't have them.
I'm gonna say something. I don't know if you guys brought this up before,
we'll come back up.
but also get a bunch of honey, because honey doesn't go bad
Honey's a good
if it's
trade
stored
item.
properly, and it has a lot of
And
medicinal benefits.
Absolutely, I've seen it used for everything from teas to ointments and lubrication and all kinds of weird stuff. And it's easier to carry than sugar. If you need sugar for your coffee or your tea or something like that, one little jar of honey will probably actually go farther than a pound of sugar. And sugar attracts ants like crazy, out in the wild. Whereas honey, if it's in a sealed container, they're not getting in it. A glass jar with a lid.
How much is a gallon of honey? $60-something. Well, it depends on where you are. For us, I think it's like $60 or $70 for a gallon. And it's not that hard. And unless you're my son, you're probably not going through tons and tons of it. I've also mentioned something. I went out with a veterinary student, and she said that they used a lot of sugar as poultices and packed it into wounds.
Right, that's what I was talking about. And Crafting Gamer brought that up for healing rate after burns. May just brought up a good point. Most commercially sold honey is heat processed, which essentially destroys its beneficial qualities and turns it into fructose. I did not know that, but all of our honey we get from Mexico, and it's the real deal. Because
and it just depends on where you go. I have for me, I have a big honey farm right next to me. It just depends on what you like. And at one point they were selling 20 to 25 different types of honey. They've cut back a lot of it, but they had everything from snowberry to wild. And that's the other thing, is if you can get, supposedly, now I don't know if it's really affect that much, if you can get wild local honey, that will help you out a lot for allergies, is what they say, but I haven't seen it. The other part is, if you, depending on where you are, if you can get, a nice beehive, depending on where you live, you can get the wax is useful for all sorts of stuff. And I mean, we used to buy stuff that was, well, they don't even put an expiration date on the stuff that we have. And I don't know how well it's treated for certain ones, but, they do creamed honey, and they would cream it in with like blackberry or raspberry and stuff like that. And they don't have an expiration date. And they talk, and we talked to the people, and they're like, well, maybe after 4 years, you should probably get rid of it. I mean, 4 years is a long time for stuff.
And another thing that I just thought about while you all were speaking of honey and cream, another fun thing to do is, if you ever, for just putting back stuff, when you go to a fast food, certain fast foods, you get extra salt and pepper little packets. A lot of people throw those away. What I do is I get glass jars where I've drank, say, a coffee or something like that. And I will take that lid and clean everything real good. And I'll put those extra, it could be anything. It could be vinegar, ketchup and stuff won't last too long. Mustard will last a little bit longer, but those are great items to have just stuck in those jars, and you have them. Creamers last a very long time and stuff like that. Stick them down in there and you'll have them. Not of course the liquid creamer, but the powder creamer.
Yeah.
That's good stuff to have, and it's a good trade item. You know, you can trade salt and pepper. People are going to want stuff they didn't think about, and a lot of people don't think about it. Believe me, I have two stepdaughters that don't believe they were taught how to prepare, and they're not prepared. So,
Well, even for myself, I can't say that I'm that prepared. I mean, if I was having to walk to my property, which is next to a intermittent creek, that would probably take me 2 or 3 days. Just being realistic. It's because it's about 20, 25 miles away, but I'm trying to plant these trees out there so I'll have something in the future.
that's a good idea.
You know, but
Welcome to the show, Ye Old Geek. The Old Geek.
Yeah.
Sorry, man. I glad to see you here. I wanted to read this thing that Grandma wrote down. Pick a different useful plant a month to learn about, identify, understand, use, like California poppy, for example, or what wild mustard or radish looks like. Yeah, absolutely. There's a
Great
lot
idea.
of things in our yards
Great idea.
that
Yep.
you know that people a long time ago used to highly value, and now we just treat them as weeds and things. There's a lot of good
Absolutely.
stuff out there. There's the book The Old Ways, which is a must-have for any prepper's library.
Great book. Yep.
And I want to get to food before we run out of time for today. Canned foods are great, but they're not so great if you are bugging out. There's a lot more efficient ways to bring food with you, especially pasta. If you were to try to compare a can of like SpaghettiOs or something like that to a box of macaroni and cheese or your favorite other pastas that you can whip up at a campsite, the weight difference is phenomenal. Not to mention those metal cans. Well, they can be useful for cooking and things like that, even for making small snares and other improvisational uses from having just a metal can. The weight is just staggering. You will not be able to get but a half a dozen cans in your bag, and then start trudging across the outdoors with something like that. Definitely go with the lightest foods, dehydrated. Mind you, this isn't going to last for a
Very
long
true.
time.
Very
But
true.
carrying around 10 boxes of mac and cheese. If you discard the cardboard box, put them in. There you go.
Those are good.
I mean-
It drains out of the whole library.
Good ones.
I mean, I have one for local where it's there, but some things you're gonna have to look at, because there's tons of mushrooms that are edible all around you, and
Mhm.
Just get
we
the
talk
right
about
one.
books and stuff, but man, some of these things, we'll see. This book looked pretty useful too. But if you have the old Boy Scout books or the Cub Scout, those books are actually pretty useful for basic skills. If you're not there, it's just pull that book out. It'll teach you how to do knots and all sorts of useful things that people have forgotten
That's
how to do.
true.
Yeah, I have my Rangers and a couple other military handbooks, first aid guides. I tend to go with the military ones because they're going to tell you in the simplest way, and they usually jam a lot into them without
Yeah, I know in the military, but I just meant, but for basic, stuff on how to do, the Cub Scout books or Boy Scout books or whatever, those are fantastic. The other military manuals are fairly thick.
Yeah, we're starting to sound like a bunch of druids, but you know what? The old ways are the best ways when it comes to just good old fashioned survival. A tip
You gotta
for
eat-
your
you gotta
book though, if you can get out to your local swap meets or use bookstores, they'll be just more than happy to give you a discount to get those books out of their get those books out of their shops or their garages or what have you. I'm not sure what trees SpaghettiOs grow on.
There we go.
It's a good one.
But I mean, those are the things that the other part is, if you're going to talk about medicines, and we're talking about an emergency situation, don't skip by your local vet.
That's right.
Yeah.
Your veterinarians, and I'm going to say this because it's been like 20 years, but I used to know vet techs that whenever they got sick would walk into the back and take like ivermectin or whatever else is there. Like, yep, just cleared right up, and it's, and
Very
everyone
true.
acts like they're different medicines. By my understanding is that they're not the same quality control, but yeah, that's what it is usually.
You're probably
Ivermectin
better
safe
off
for
actually
things.
going to a Tractor
COVID.
Supply than your local vet these days. Say you need it for your animals. A lot of times you could just get it right over, not even over the counter, it's on a shelf. Or your larger pet stores. If you try to go to your vet, they're gonna look up your name and your pet and call you on your BS or whatever you want to call it.
Oh, I'm just saying that if it's an emergency, at an emergency, all rules are out the door.
I'll be right back.
Well, actually, EL Geek, you know what's funny about that is apparently those are not poisonous. They just claim that they're poisonous. They're just anyway. There's some weird things that when you
I
start
think he's
really
referring
delving
to
down.
Mario. I think he's making a Mario joke.
Yeah. Well, no. He's
But
talking about
could
the
be wrong.
Amanita
You need to
mushrooms.
correct-
The Amanita mushrooms, the ones that cause the mescal. Where they use like the reindeer urine that they drink to do that, where Santa Claus may come from. There's a lot of things involved in that. But yeah.
Yeah, I can't even picture. I used to know the name of what you're talking about. It's not coming to mind. But yeah, I don't know how they do stuff like that. But when in Rome, I guess. Now,
Well,
other things with food. What are some items you guys would absolutely insist on putting in your bug out bag? Because
pemmican. Pemmican.
Okay.
That's one of the easiest things to do is just grab some good old round steak, mix it up with either blueberries or cherries or something of that sort, and lard. And that's what the Native Americans used to do. They used to make that all the time. That would be one. Basically, anything that you can get dehydrated, like you were talking about earlier. Be really careful, though. This is what people forget about, because this happened a lot for the people around the military. They'd eat the dehydrated fruit, and then they'd drink some water, and it would expand their stomach, and boom. So be careful from that aspect, is just because it's
if you can't get the dehydrated food, stock up on things like granola bars, trail mix, things like that.
pasta.
They're not gonna. Yeah, pasta's the best because it's lightweight. You're not even carrying the weight of it until you add it to the water in comparison to just about any other kind of food. And there's all kinds of different shapes and sizes. I highly recommend there's these this company puts out these little bags like this of like stars and broken spaghetti and different shapes of little pasta noodles, usually meant for like kids, but it's one little bag and that will, with a couple of extra ingredients, that's dinner for 2 or 3 people right there.
I'm going to say this much. When we're talking about pasta, don't forget about beans.
Beans are good.
Beans and rice.
Onions. My
Oh,
wife
yeah,
got a big pallet. She got a big pallet of onions. We had a place we found recently, and she got a big 50-pound bag of onions for a very extremely good price. And that's onion soup. That's French onion soup. It's canned. And she got a big thing of carrots. That's carrots she canned. These are, of course, out of season. And she got a big pallet. She got a pallet of, they call it a pallet, it's really not, but it's a case, a lot of bags of cranberries. She made cranberry juice. If you can make good, cheap purchases like that, get yourself a good canner, get yourself a good water bath canner, a good pressure canner. You can put away a lot of stuff a lot cheaper, and you know how good it is. You know how fresh it is. You can can meat, you can can all kinds of things. Just be careful and follow the instructions. But that's a great way if you're staying particularly if you're staying at your place, to put this
Mhm.
stuff away and have it when you need it.
I-
She's doing a great job with that.
So the other part I've heard is if you can get a vacuum sealer in the Mylar
Yep.
bags,
She has
you
that.
just
Yep.
you just put it
Great
in there
idea.
and then you vacuum seal it, and then you throw in whatever absorbs the oxygen, because it's the oxygen that usually causes the big problem. And if you get something that sucks out the little silica stuff, anyway, you get that to suck out the oxygen. It's good for years in many cases.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
That's a great idea.
Well, you know what? You talk about cannibals, but here's my question, Echo. Have you actually been through a natural disaster?
Who, me?
Well, Echo, EKCO.
Oh, yeah, I've been through a couple of things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
is that you?
yeah.
Because you're saying 8 million. No, it's if you look at the bottom where Shadow has the stuff there. Everyone acts like it's going to be the Lord of the Flies, and I have never found that to be the case. Even when
No,
we had the
Yeah,
Right
people
now,
are more likely to just,
It's
lay down and die
inconvenient.
and starve to death before they actually
Yeah.
start eyeballing each other like the old Bugs Bunny cartoons.
It's going to be
it-
inconvenient for most small things, but when you have a big thing, it's not inconvenient anymore. It's bad. And
well,
things.
you'll get a group that will do stuff like that, but your neighbors are usually going to be out there to help you out. Because I can
Yep.
say that I've been through several. I've met my neighbors that I'd never met before. They offered me food. They offered me help. Everyone acts like it's going to be Lord of the Flies. It isn't as much as you think it will be. Everyone
Depends on
takes the
what it
worst
is.
case. What's
Depends
that?
on what it is.
Well,
I mean,
even during
we have a-
hurricanes, you'll see some of
We
it.
have a government right now where we had FEMA not even going to, and they say, oh, that's not our place. Well, our president didn't pay any attention. Our so-called transportation secretary didn't do any. I mean, that was ridiculous. That was a nasty chemical spill. And it took a former president to actually go up there before these people do anything. If we had a big disaster, I don't know how much we could even trust the way things are right now. You better look after yourself.
Well, I'm
No
not saying
matter
that,
what
but see,
you
the problem is he's talking about cannibals. He's talking about also these people become roving marauders. That can
Cannibal.
happen at one point, but the reality of it is for everything I've ever been in, other than a few people, it doesn't become like that.
Well,
And
wait a minute. When you're a cannibal, try these. You can put these carrots in with your you got to get your cauldron. You got to have some.
I know, but I'm saying, from personal experience that I've seen for all of this, is everyone generally
Mhm.
tries coming together for the most part, and
Yep.
you'll see a few bad apples. Don't get me wrong, you will see a few bad apples, but that's all of a sudden where this is where
I
people
can't-
forget.
I can't see
People
the
get on the
chat. He was
roof.
talking about cannibals.
So you're not seeing the
Echo was
chat. You have
making
to
a
look at the
joke.
chat. You're not looking at the chat there. If you look at the
Oh,
chat, you'll
yeah.
see
I'm
it.
sorry. I can't see it, but yeah, I'll take your word for it. Yeah, cannibals are a bad idea.
Well, the other part is even usually what's going to happen is most people evacuate. Most people will get together. They'll form their little groups. You're going to have outsiders that come in that are going to try to get it, and that's where you get the people on the rooftops. This is why I always hear people talk about guns. But hey, look, when that happened over in Andrew, people stayed at their homes and they had a gun up there, and if you went into someone's house, they would shoot you. It's not one they start protecting their neighbors. It's not this. That's the problem that you're going to have is if you start moving and they don't identify you in a bad situation, that's where you're going to have some problems. Yeah. Well,
Yeah, it's a good way to have neighbors looking after each other. That's a great idea. It's the best thing to do. And cannibals to have cannibals in your neighborhood. If you know you have cannibals in your neighborhood, just say, we don't want you in our neighborhood. You're eating people, you ate my grandmother, get out.
well, and I'm going to say this much because I actually a couple weeks ago I was at the FEMA location, and people don't understand how FEMA actually works. Is you need to have your local governor declare the emergency, request the emergency from the president, and the president calls it as well. Otherwise, they're not allowed to come in. The other part is I'm going to mention this for hurricanes.
Bad
Because
presidents can do that.
Is well, just because the president says it doesn't mean because actually the local people determine a lot more than what happens above. It's not a top down; it's actually a kind of a bottom up, with the top coming in to help. But the other part that you're going to have to look at is anyone that has damage, severe wind damage. especially in a very big area, they're going to come in, which is what I was hearing was happening in Ohio. The company or whoever's the insurance is going to come in, they're going to give you a check. If you cash that check, they're going to say,
Don't
oh,
do
no, you
that.
took the damages. That's one. Number two is there's something called Blue Roof. All that they're going to do is they're going to put a blue roof over the top of your house, and that's just going to try preventing more water damage. But if you're going to, I hate saying this, if you're going to wait for FEMA to, or not FEMA, well, if you're going to wait for either whether it's FEMA or your flood insurance or anyone else to come and help you, you're going to get probably more damage in the long run and not have anything. Just start, figure out what you can take, but just understand that if your house doesn't have air conditioning, it's going to start molding and all sorts of stuff in the South.
Yep.
And so
in
you
a lot of cases, they may the state or the county or what have you might require you to leave just because they're worried that your house is going to collapse on you. So, have a, a plan, and as soon as they think you're gone, go back and get what you got to get that you couldn't get the first or second time. Otherwise, it's just, like we were talking about before, with your refrigerator still running or full of food that's now just starting to rot in there. You got to be self-reliant, count on yourself, and, bend or break the rules as you see fit, because those rules aren't meant for you. They're meant for somebody else, whether it be the government or a big company covering their butts. They're not concerned about you in the slightest. You are the last consideration they're going to make.
Well, here's
true.
what's going to happen during a natural disaster is, and this you can look at that for FEMA, depending on where you are, expect 72 to 120 hours before you can get help. That's under ideal conditions. That's why even when we were looking at, what was it? Everyone remembers how bad Katrina was for New Orleans. They still took it took them 120 hours to get there. That's 5 days. Here's the other part that people forget during a natural disaster. Emergency medical services do not come out during the event. They wait till the event is over, then they'll come out and they'll look. They're not, when everyone talks about first responders, your first responder is always your neighbor. That's your true first responder. Only then, unless it's
for your neighbor.
Well, no, I mean, if there's an earthquake, the first people that are going to come to your house are your neighbors, not the emergency medical services. The other thing is, most of them, when they go out, because I took a class on this when I was in college, they'll drive out and they'll survey the damage first. So they'll survey, and after the survey is done, then they'll try figuring out how to allocate resources. And if you're out in the middle of nowhere and there are 5 people there and there are 100 people under a building, they're automatically going to go to the building to try getting the most number of people. I'm not trying to say that everything.
There's just not enough of them compared to everybody else.
And
the numbers are less than 100 to 1.
Be prepared yourself. Talk to your neighbors. Yep, very good idea, because it's ultimately you're the one that's going to suffer one way or another, or your family. So
I'm going to bring this up too. Is you should look at what your hazards are in the areas that you live in. If you're living near the Madrid earthquake zone, understand that earthquake in the 1800s literally caused the Mississippi to flow backwards. And you can look it up under the USGS natural hazards. If you live near wildfires, adjust accordingly, at a certain point. But it's not that I want to say this, actually having worked with a lot of the people, most people want to help in government. It's just that they're either limited or there's, and bureaucracy takes a while. So
yeah, red tape will kill millions in a true disaster. Exactly,
That's
RPG
right.
Grandma.
Yep.
They have to triage, and that means the people who are closest to death get the first care, which is great for those people. But the people that are at the end of the line, they could end up just as dead because somebody was closer to death and you had to literally wait the entire time. And
very true.
So have those medical skills and those medical kits ready. Learn how to do your own triage, so to speak. There are a lot of places you can learn, a lot of classes you can take. One of my favorite channels to watch is the Prepper Nurse, Patriot Nurse. I think
Oh yeah,
that's her
yeah.
name.
I know what you're referring to.
She's awesome. She's a little, a little hardcore, but she knows her stuff and she's seen a lot of crap. And if you're not subscribed to her, once you
She's
start
very,
subscribing to
she's
other
very
prepper
interesting.
channels, you'll start learning this stuff. And instead of, watching
She's,
some of your,
she's here in
disheartening
Virginia.
news.
Isn't She's here in Virginia, and I
Oh,
believe.
really?
I think so.
Awesome.
Is she?
Awesome.
Yeah, I believe she is. Yeah,
I'm going
they
to say this much. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, if you, one of the most important things that preppers leave out a lot of times in their show, the other shows, is watch to make sure that if there's a wound, this isn't, you're not necessarily going to be able to go anywhere. Clean that wound really good. Don't worry about, if you're not going to be able to get to a doctor or penicillin or anything to help you, and you don't have extras of any kind of penicillin type items, any kind of
Antibiotic.
antibacterial, antibiotic, you're going to need to clean wounds extra well. Don't let that wound get infected, because then you've got a problem. If you can't get to those pills, that's going to be really bad. So clean those wounds. Whatever you do, clean those wounds. Keep stuff to clean them. Look at videos on how to clean wounds properly, how to irrigate them, how to keep them clean. Don't risk that. That's all I was going to say.
Well, you know what? Is I've heard that you can use rice as a poultice. If you're starting, for some of that. There's a lot of stuff that, like I said, sugar, which sounds funny, but that lady I went out with who was a veterinarian said that they pack the animals with huge amounts of sugar, like especially horses, whenever they got a big gaping wound, just to prevent that. So I'm not saying that everything works. So you'll have to go look at, I think, rice, a lot of stuff you'll have to look at to see what works and what doesn't.
Your local stores actually, believe it or not, Walmart, I picked up the equivalent of Quick Clot there, Bleed Stop, as many of those as you can afford, because in an emergency, there's nothing you wouldn't trade for them. And, having extras, could save your life by the sheer fact that you're helping others. They're going to realize that you're the last guy in the neighborhood that anybody wants to mess with, because if they've got a problem, you're the equivalent of the medic, and people are going to be coming to you, in which case, it may, put you higher on the pecking order within your neighborhood if people realize, hey, this person's prepared, this person's ready. And when little Jimmy, needed stitching, you were the one to do the stitching. And, you can't do it on your own, like I've said before.
Absolutely. And
remember
the old
one
the old
family trying to go ahead, Grim.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, remember the old sawbone adage that it takes 4 to 5 men to hold down a guy who's losing a limb if you're going to saw off a limb, but it takes only one pretty lady. Just for fun. If you're sawing off limbs, you're in bad shape.
well, I mean, tourniquets. The thing is, even if you're, I hate saying it, but I remember listening to them talk about. We had a medic here talking about if someone got shot at the gun range. The gun range is literally 7 minutes from downtown here, and we're probably about 10 minutes away. But he said, people forget just how long it takes to get somewhere, especially if there's a train in your way or something of that sort. And Quick Clot is great. A tourniquet, know how to use a tourniquet and use it effectively. Because apparently the way things are going now, if you get a real good tourniquet, especially those military ones, you can put that on, and this is what we taught us when we were overseas. Put the tourniquet on if you're in doubt. If in doubt, tourniquet it. After the fight was over, then you can clean the wound and look at it and go, okay, look, that's a flesh wound. You can take it off. But they're like, don't do a guessing game, if things are really bad.
if the blood's not stopping, you need to stop it, one way or the other. And thank you, Grandma, for the heads up here.
Your voice dropped there, Shadow. I don't know if it's just me, but your voice dropped. Your volume. Is that just me?
I might have.
No, you're really low, Shadow.
Really, I wonder what that is. How about now?
Yeah, you're real low.
You're still no. You went from normal voice to suddenly dropped, and I mean, you didn't look like you do anything.
I wonder what that is. Huh. But
I,
thanks, Grandma. We'll keep our eyes peeled. I don't live that close to any mountains or anything that could do any of that. But I do live near the LA River, I guess you might call it, which isn't really a river. It's a gigantic drainage ditch. But yeah, folks, we're cruising up toward the end of the show. I wanted to, get a little gaming aspect in here, and Yield brought it up a while ago about the survival aspect for a Call of Cthulhu game, which is the one of the kinds of games that you can practice these sort of situations along with any sort of modern or old west or top secret games where you can kind of use the same sort of situations and equipment that we have here in the real world. If you guys get a chance, remember these skills and these mindsets for your RPG games. That way you can get the equivalent of practice even when sitting down, especially with people who are not of a mind to prep whatsoever. You can subliminally teach them or encourage them to start thinking about it. If they're willing to, pack, 20 days worth of rations on a mule to get to the dungeon, they can start thinking about, well, what would you do here at home? If stuff got bad, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, well, you might want to, cut down on this or that so that you can stock up, on the things that you would need, the medical supplies, bandages, food, water, all those little things. If you only put $10 a week away for your emergency bag, by the end of the year, you'll be better prepared than 99% of the people out there. It doesn't
very
take
true.
much. It just takes a little bit of thought and a little bit of sacrifice. And I mean, if $10 is too much to sacrifice to put away every week, what are you doing with your life? Because those coffees and those fast food trips are not going to do you any good in an emergency, and you will be kicking yourself. Having heard this, every time you didn't put something away for your earthquake kit, your survival kit, your first aid kit, whatever it is, you can divvy it up by threes. $3 here, $3 there, $3 there. Even if it's only one little product of bandages, one extra, case of water, one extra, box of ramen, and then when you've got enough of all that stuff, move on to the next thing. Always keep stocking up on the water, but you can, add more to, your food supply and your medical supply. And if you're lucky enough, you can, put some money into the other category, which of course is bullets. And if you're not of a mind to do that, then get a baseball bat, whatever it takes, to defend yourself, not against the ravaging cannibal hordes, but the bad guys out there, because there's going to be people who did not prep, and they're going to think, well, I'm just big enough, I'll just go knocking on doors and taking what I want. Well, no. Eventually, those people are going to get stopped, but they might not get stopped until after they get to your house. And if you
Yeah, that wouldn't fare well around here. I was just saying that wouldn't fare well around here. You'd be dead pretty quick.
Right. But in some more urban areas, that is exactly what's going to happen.
Oh yeah, you're absolutely right.
Warlords are going to, rear their ugly heads and try and take advantage of the situation. It happens every time. Someone thinks they can just, take what they want and not have to prepare. So, take that extra buck, out of the 10, three leaves you a buck. Take that extra buck, put it into a jar until you got enough to buy yourself some sort of protection, or start watching some videos and learning how to make your own protection. There's lots of things you can use, whether it be a shovel or a baseball bat or whatever, if you're ready to, you know, defend yourself, your family, and your property, you won't be a victim of the victimizers out there.
That's very true. Very true.
I went all the way
Uh,
down. We got a new comment.
You're still real low, Shadow, on the
I
volume.
can't imagine what that is. Nothing's changed.
I don't know.
What's funny is you're a lot louder, but Shadow's gotten a lot quieter. Oddly enough, I don't know if it's something he did in StreamYard or I can't imagine that's.
No.
I'm a lot louder.
Jojo, you're just
Yeah, I
here
don't.
just in time for us to
I haven't changed anything.
give our last
I know.
5 minutes. But he says, debating if I want to get a pig tomorrow. Everyone is making fun of me, but I'd like to get one. What's your guys' opinion? As in a pet, or as in you're going to buy the dead pig and butcher it and sell
No,
it?
he's going to raise it. He's going to raise the pig.
Oh, if you can, hell yeah.
Make sure you get a good private school nowadays. A good private school is good. You know, you want your pig to be, feel a part of the people. If you're going to raise it, raise it right.
Well, I mean, look, I live around the country. People have actually gotten wild boars. And then what they'll do is they'll feed them corn to get rid of a lot of that gamey taste. And they'll actually pet them. I see nothing wrong with raising the pig if you have the room for it. Just understand something that don't bring like little kids around them, because that was my big fear when my son was around those pigs. Those pigs weren't even full grown. They're already at 400 pounds. Well, it was a breeding couple, but
I worked for a guy when I was a kid, and sadly, he had a heart attack in his pig pen. And when they found him, there wasn't much of him left. They will eat people. They'll eat whatever. He was a lone gentleman. His family had moved away, and his children, and his wife had passed away. And I wasn't there. I was being a police officer in another place, and he was found dead like 2 or 3 days later, and they ate him.
And for 2 or 3 days later, I had a boss. A bunch of chickens died. I don't know if the air conditioner or something happened, and they threw all of the chickens over the fence, and these pigs were just ripping them apart and eating them.
They eat flesh. Yep.
Yeah, people forget they're true omnivores, and but yeah, I think it's great if you can do it. Like most things, you probably get somewhat attached to them.
You're already on the right path, because the good thing about chickens is, depending on how many you have, at some point you'll have more eggs than you know what to do with, and that will be a great way to start the ball rolling in your neighborhood. It's like, well,
absolutely,
I'm gonna have eggs coming out my ears. Tell you what, I won't sell them to you, but I will trade them for X. And then that person will trade you for water or for canned goods or whatever they have. Maybe they got an orange tree. It's like, I'll trade you, eggs to oranges straight across, something like that. And, or you work out some sort of barter system, and you get your friends and neighbors already of the mindset that, hey, you know what, maybe I'll raise, something else, or I'll do something else. I'll grow this, or, I'll get extra, instead of buying eggs from the grocery store, I'll buy, 6 packs of beer or whatever. It doesn't matter. Whatever you want, you can find a way, and it'll get them into the mindset of trading and being better neighbors. Okay?
Yeah. I know what they're saying here. Here's the other part is, and I'm going to mention this because my ex does a lot of this. 4-H, FFA. Go make friends with those, because a lot of times they'll have spare animals after they're showing that, and they'll say, hey, look, do you want some turkeys? Do you want this? I mean, you can get them real there. And the other part is these commercial layers. After the second year, they'll get rid of the chickens, and you can buy them super cheap, and they'll keep laying for years after that.
Yep. Okay, you guys are getting into sorry, Mages. I was reading the chat. Some of you guys are getting kind of crazy out there, but I get it. We're all gamers, and we all, go to the, the extreme ideas, but that's part of, why I wanted to do this is because you guys are already, halfway there, if not more than that, ready to be ready for any situation that might come down the road, because there's a whole lot of different kinds of bad things that happen. The last 2 years, 3 years, whatever you want to count it, should have been a big wake up call for everybody of how unready most of us really were.
Very true.
What's 4-H? Is that like the 4-H club?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
yeah, exactly. 4-H is it's not that hard. 4-H is they usually show animals and things, but a lot of people will raise like 10 or 15 animals to get one for show, and then when the season's over, they'll be like, "Hey, I need to get rid of it. You want some?" And there was a lady I met. She was trying to get rid of about 10 or 15 turkeys.
Wow.
Fresh turkey's great.
I don't like turkey myself. I'd rather, but there's a lot of different animals. And ducks are a great one too. Ducks are really good. The thing is that everyone has this disgusting view of chickens, which I understand, but there are dozens of different breeds out there that are a lot prettier and more attractive, and Rhode Island Reds and a lot of other stuff. So get one that's attractive and lays eggs. And the other part is just be aware of chickens that, depending on the breed, a lot of them stop laying eggs for about 3 or 4 months a year.
Yeah, during the winter.
Not all of them, but a lot of them will.
Right.
It's good to know what kind of breed you're getting. Yep. Sex links will lay even in the winter, but not constantly, but they'll lay pretty well. It's a great breed.
I like
There's
Americanas because they are or Aracanas. Anyway, the ones that have the yellow and the green eggs. I'm
Those
sorry,
are
not yellow, but they have the pink and green eggs or the bluish eggs. Those are just cool to look at.
I like the Spitzhaven, which is a German chicken and has that big top hat looking thing, which means
Yeah.
top hat. And those are fun, but they're
The
not
Polish.
great, but they're pretty.
Well,
They lay
what's
okay.
sad. What's sad is I used to find a lot more of them. Like there's a place 3 miles south of here where they had like 100 different types of breeds, and a lot of them just aren't there anymore. So
Sad. Yeah.
yeah. Well,
All right,
you have to find people willing to buy them. Otherwise they
That's
won't
true.
breed
for
them.
me. I'm gonna last comment of the night. Joe, the pig is for my son. While it's small, but come fall time, the freezer will be packed. Like I said, everyone around me is acting like I'm nuts, but I like the idea of 100 pounds of meat hanging around. You know what?
That's good.
Yeah, get yourself that extra.
Good
freezer
idea.
if you can afford it, and maybe a solar panel to power it. In case of an emergency, you can literally never have too much meat because you can always have a barbecue, invite the neighbors over, get to know them, and start that prepping group for your neighborhood, so that while the rest of the your immediate area is falling apart and people are freaking out, you've got a bunch of people willing to stand their ground and work together for the betterment of your neighborhood.
Absolutely.
But I got to hit the road, folks. It's been an hour. We will be back next week with another topic. We'll all be doing other game stuff throughout the week. I got a bunch of stuff I got to do today. I'll be back for another video tonight to show off some minis, and I've got to get ready for a game shortly. But until then, folks, take care, everyone. Sorry, Mike, you just got here, or you just commented. We're gonna make the show an hour, so it's easier to digest for latecomers. And if you guys have any comments, please add them to the comment section below after the video. And we're gonna try and have a few more of you in to join the show from time to time. Thanks, Omen, for showing up. Grim, you know the deal. As
Thank
always,
you, Shadow Buddy.
everybody.
Nice
take
to
care
see you,
and God
Omen.
bless.
Yep.
Nice to see you, Omen. Al. Take care. Y'all have a good day.
All right. Take care.
See you later. See you on your next one. Bye.